Part 4. The Practice of Everyday Glitch. So last year I gave a talk at the Media Live Festival in Boulder, Colorado, entitled How and Why You Should Corrupt Your Files, which framed glitch art less as a fine art practice and more as a digital folk practice. I went over all the classic data bending techniques as digital literacy exercises rather than as a means of producing glitch art objects. Again, digital literacy is a prerequisite for agency in networked culture. There are many different paths towards digital literacy. One path, which I fully endorse and advocate, is learning to program. Another, less conventional path, is glitch art, not as a means to an end, but as an everyday process or exercise. I gave a remixed version of that talk or tutorial as the practice of everyday glitch after hours at SAC, which is a school I teach at, in preparation for a talk I was invited to give at Refrag Glitch in Parsons, Paris. So this new title is a reference to a book called The Practice of Everyday Life by Michel de Certeau, which, quote, examines the ways in which people individualize mass culture, altering things, from utilitarian objects to street plans to rituals, laws and language, in order to make them their own. According to de Certeau, we do ourselves a disservice when we understand everyday folks as passive consumers, when in reality, de Certeau argues, as users, we're always already automatically recontextualizing and subverting in everyday situations the strategic intentions of the institutional producers. We're like Charlie Chaplin, which de Certeau says, quote, multiplies the possibility of his cane. He does other things with the same thing, and he goes beyond the limits that the determinants of the object set upon its utilization. I appreciate de Certeau's perspective and hopeful twist on resistance when it might otherwise seem futile, but it can be problematic to apply it to contemporary digital network life, where institutions of power presuppose a user in their design. In his essay, Commodify Your Consumption, Tactical Surfing and Wakes of Resistance, Kirk Cloninger explains, the agency that de Certeau's consumer enacted to tactically reassemble the one-to-many media broadcasted to her in 1980 is being increasingly usurped by institutionally recommended and protologically enforced modes of interactive behavior. Once the consumer mistakes these institutional suggestions for the exercises of her own tactical agency, she fails to exercise that actual agency. With so many customizable options available, how could she resist? The danger of MySpace and YouTube is not the threat that they may wind up archiving and owning all the content I produce, or that they are currently getting rich off the content I produce, but that they control the parameters within which I produce my original content. So Kurt brings to light an issue beyond the familiar, though important, conversations around user-generated content and digital labor, that of user agency. How decentralized and distributed is our experience of the network when we use, that is, consume and produce, it through a relatively few set of centralized and controlled apps? Think Facebook. At the end of the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, Walter Benjamin warns, quote, fascism, think Facebook, attempts to organize the newly created proletarian masses without affecting the property structure which the masses strive to eliminate. Fascism sees its salvation in giving these masses not their right, but instead a chance to express themselves. The masses have a right to change property relations. Fascism seeks to give them an expression while preserving property. And so it would seem de Certeau's tactical user has been co-opted, as the story goes. And yet, I see another hopeful twist on resistance. What if we embrace misuse, glitch art, as an everyday practice? Let's take a few minutes each morning just after checking our social media and just before reading our email, open a few applications at random and misuse them. Do whatever it wasn't designed to do. Because glitch is all about doing things the wrong way, I'd argue it's an exception to Cloninger's rule. Disregard for a moment the institutional suggestions and customizable options of that particular app or platform and see if you can break it. Not for the sake of breaking it, but for all the discoveries along the way, the informal digital literacy. So you can share, like, comment, post on Facebook, but what can't you do? Or what isn't it designed to do? Or what aren't you supposed to do? In an interview with Creators Project, Laimano Zakas, aka Glitcher, explained this line of thought behind his own Facebook bending practice. He said, quote, my initial idea was to explore how far I can go beyond the strict constraints of Facebook's layout. It all started with combinations of Unicode, but later I discovered that I could embed the site's own graphical elements, chat boxes, search bars, captchas, etc., in the posts, and this way distort the whole layout even more. What resulted was not only unexpected for Glitcher, but for any of his friends who would come across his posts while scrolling through their feeds. Often these posts would lead to realizations and conversations about these limitations. At one point, back when the only form of media allowed on Facebook was text and static images, Glitcher found a way to post an animated GIF to his wall, inciting a long discussion in the comments about the restriction and tactics for how to circumvent them. Eventually, the animated GIF was spotted by Facebook developers, and the glitch was fixed. Which seems to be a typical narrative of Glitcher's exploits. At one point, Facebook even offered Glitcher $500 for every bug he would report. While I'm happy to say he passed them up on this offer, this brings up an important point. There may come a day when Silicon Valley and prevailing power structures find a way of co-opting misuse in the same way they did de Certeau's tactical use. But at the time of this recording, they have not. And so I invite you, I implore you, make glitch art a practice in your everyday life. Not in the interest of becoming glitch artist per se, but in the interest of reclaiming some agency in your digital space.